Hello friends! In this video I'm going to show you how I decorated a wooden advent calendar for a calendar exchange I did with a friend. The calendar came from Hobbycraft and cost £16. It's made entirely of MDF with little wooden handles and the drawers are all different sizes. I'm planning to decoupage the drawer fronts, so I'll be using pliers to take off the handles. I've also scoured my scrap paper and ephemera drawers and collected everything I can find with greens, silvers and golds. This includes old tissue paper, used wrapping paper, a cover from an old book, and even some toilet paper wrapping. The first thing I did was remove all of the drawers. My plan was to spray paint the frame gold, but then I realised how small the can was, so I decided to use this red spray paint that I've had for a while instead. Next I removed all of the handles with these pliers. They're actually jewellery making pliers, and the parts that grip are made of, I think, a silicone or rubber. This was good for making sure the handles weren't damaged. This drawer was unfortunately damaged and the glue on one of the joints has come undone, so I set this one aside so I could fix it later. The next step involved going through all the papers and cards that I'd gathered and seeing what would fit onto each drawer. Then I used PVA glue to attach them. This process was quite time consuming, so I'll leave you with the music until the next part. Once this was done, I used some things I found around my studio to weigh everything down while the glue set. I sealed the glue in a plastic bag to make sure it stayed fresh, and I also left some drawers blank so I could see how I felt about the rest of the drawers before deciding what would go on these ones. Once the initial drawers were dry, I went over them to fix any problems and to double up on some of the tissue paper, either to make the colour bolder or here to add the tissue with the gold stripes with the green coming through underneath. Most of those were finalised and trimmed. I then went through the remaining drawers to decide which papers to add to those and went through the whole process again. At this point, I decided to get one of my green Posca pens and rub it along the edges of each drawer. The green blends pretty well with the other colours chosen, but I just felt this pulled all of the drawers together, and it sort of creates a uniformity between the drawers in what is otherwise quite random and chaotic. This was probably the stage I liked least in the whole process. Each of the handles had some glue left on it from when I pulled them out of the drawers, which needed to be removed before I could put them back in. Initially, I used this heat tool to try and melt the glue before pulling it off with pliers. This worked okay, but was very time consuming, and also hurt my hand quite a lot, having to grip the pliers like that. I soon realised the heat gun wasn't making much of a difference, so started just pulling off the glue as best I could with the pliers. It was quite time consuming, but eventually they got clear enough to be able to move on to the next step. After trying out a few different colours of Posca pens, I settled on a dark red to colour in each of the handles. This was a little bit fiddly, but quite satisfying. Next, I decided to add an extra coat of PVA glue onto each of the drawer fronts to protect them from damage and make them easier to clean. Wood glue and a clamp sorted out the broken drawer, and then I donned my face mask and spray painted the frame with several coats. Here we are on the next day with everything nice and dry. I'm hanging out on Zoom waiting for one of my friends to come so that we can body double while I finish off the advent calendar. I'm really happy with how the drawers turned out, but before we can add the handles, I need to do the final drawer front of the one that needed fixed, and then make holes in all of the drawers using an awl. Some of the handles fit back in nicely, some needed to be hammered in, and some I attached using UHU All Purpose Adhesive. Cricut Joy to cut out the numbers for each of the drawers because the mat wasn't sticky enough anymore and the paper just went everywhere. Thankfully I had a spare mat to hand and the second go worked much better. Completed and the frame now spray painted red. All that's left is to decide which order the drawers go in, apply the numbers, and add one final layer of PVA glue to protect them. Here's the final piece, ready to be filled with goodies and taken over to my friend's house.